If you want to grow your own veg at home, what should you start with? Whether you want to know what's easy to grow or just looking for inspiration, or you want to know what the crops you should grow to improve as a gardener the quickest, well, this video is for you. So here are my top 10 veggies for all beginner gardeners. The first crop you're going to want to give growing a go is your own lettuce. For a couple good reasons. One, it's one of the cheapest seeds that you can buy, and it's really easy to start from seed. Two, the most common contribution to household food waste is actually bagged lettuce. So if you're growing your own, you no longer run into that problem because you can come out at mealtime, grab however many handfuls of lettuce that you need, throw it in your salad, and you're not wasting any. Or if you do waste it, it just goes in the green waste and you grow more. But lettuce is also a fantastic teaching tool. It's just about the best first crop to grow to learn gardening. Because it has not really many requirements. You don't have to do weird things with trellising. There isn't strange fertilizer requirements because of how it fruits or flowers. It's a green leaf. You need some fertilizer in the soil, some nitrogen for it to grow. Just put it in a sunny spot, keep it watered, and harvest it before it gets too big and looks like it's about to go to seed. Both fantastic to learn with and something you'll have in the garden for the rest of your life. The next one is by far the biggest plant on the list. This is zucchini. And nearly in its place, I could put pumpkin because it's also really easy to grow, but zucchini ultimately it's a bit smaller and you get really big yields off it. And once the plant gets established, they're really easy to just keep going. They need good soil, they do get pretty big. You need to keep an eye out for any sort of disease looking leaves and then cut them off. Now they are fantastic to grow, but they do only grow in the warmer months. But after that, they're pretty low maintenance. In terms of easy to grow food that actually fills up your plate a lot, zucchini's probably the best one. Honestly, the biggest downside to zucchini is how much fruit you get off it. There's so much. I would recommend for a household of 4, at most, you're probably only going to need 2 plants. Any list of easy to grow veg is really remiss without this one. It is by far the easiest thing to grow. Its name, when translated from the Latin root of what it comes from, literally means easy to grow. And that is radishes. My garden nearly always has them. This year we're starting to get a little bit sick of them, but they are a fantastic addition to sandwiches and salads. The next one is another crop that you will grow for the rest of your life once you start growing. And this one might catch a few beginners out, but it's carrots. And I say that because a bag of carrots in the supermarket is about $2.50, but if you have the garden space to spare, homegrown carrots taste completely different to store-bought carrots. They're so much more aromatic and herbal and almost medicinal tasting in a good way. The first time you pull a carrot that you've grown from home out of the ground, you will wonder, what is that smell? And it's the carrot. They're crazy. And if you're wondering why I have no carrots to show you, my cat a couple of weeks ago dug up my whole 2 rows of carrots that I had in a couple different garden beds. So thanks, Tilly. But if you let a couple go to flower and seed each year, you will find that you actually have carrots popping up all over the yard, which is exactly what's happened in this pot, which is all my remaining carrots because Tilly killed the rest of my carrots. Before we get to the next one, if you're enjoying this video, please make sure to give it a green thumbs up. Now let's check out the next veggie. The next one there's more varieties of than you can count, so we've got to talk about a couple different options, and that's beans. Now, if you're like me and you say beans, I immediately picture green beans, the long thin ones that you get in the supermarket that are called green beans, which grow like this. They're actually a climbing plant. If you want to grow them, you do need to grow them up a trellis, and then once big enough, they will start to flower, and out of those, you will get your bean pods. This is actually a variety called Purple King, which produce beautiful purple pods. I have a few different ones started off, but there's one that's taken off twice as quick as all the others, and it's just starting to form a couple pods now. Climbing beans are also such a great option to grow up large vertical structures that you have or can put in the garden, like this archway that for me will be climbing beans. But if you don't want to deal with a trellis, there's another option for you. Over here, in a really awkward spot to film behind some spinach, are some dwarf bean varieties. Now you don't have to get dwarf beans, but broad bean varieties grow like this, where they just grow straight up. They completely support themselves on their stems, and then you'll get a bunch of bean pods. Now this is a dwarf variety, so that I only get pods that only hold about these 4 or 5 beans. You get this beautiful pod of beans. And these are great because they're really easy to grow. You can grow them basically anywhere. And I also think broad beans in general are really underrated for how good looking they are. For the majority of their plant life cycle, they have these beautiful white and black flowers all the way up their stems. And then only in the last couple of weeks do you actually get the pods coming through. Fair warning, these basically never make their way inside the house. They're very sweet. The next one is, I think, another one of those ones that you will, once you grow, you'll probably always have, as long as you have the space for it, and that's beetroot, which I only have one left, even though if you watch my old videos, I've got a full couple rows of it. Guess what? We pulled it up and ate it all. Beetroot obviously is a root vegetable, but I still probably recommend starting it in seed trays. The seeds can take a little bit to get going, but then once they do, they grow so well and so vigorous, and you'll be harvesting beetroots in no time. Oh, I think this one's ready. Ugh. Look at that, it's so pretty. And while we're on the topic of beetroot, an honorable mention is definitely silver beet, aka Swiss chard, rainbow chard. These are actually essentially the same species of plant. It's just that beetroot we selectively bred to get bigger, thicker roots, and silver beet's the original plant. But that also means that if you want, beetroot leaves are completely edible. And if you want a really pretty looking veggie garden, this is such a great option because it comes in such a rainbow of colors. You can get this white, which is the silver beet. It does come in the same vibrant red that this does, and it also comes in yellow, which I've got in my other garden. And similar to lettuce, silver beet's needs are really simple. Sun, water, some nitrogen-rich fertilizer if you want it to grow crazy, and it's such a beautiful addition to the garden. The next one I think some beginners can get scared of. The reality is they're really easy to grow with some extra steps. And that's tomatoes. Specifically for this list, cherry tomatoes are definitely the easiest to grow. If you stick with gardening, in 3 to 5 years' time, you will probably have tomatoes in your garden growing as a weed because they are really vigorous. The only real challenge that you encounter with tomatoes as a beginner is that you just have to learn how to trellis them. Even though tomatoes are a vining plant, they actually don't cling to the trellis themselves the same way that, say, beans do. But if you're getting into gardening and have some space to spare, I highly recommend giving tomatoes a go. You'll grow them sooner or later, and they are probably the most rewarding thing to grow in the garden because homegrown tomatoes actually taste like tomato. It's crazy how that happens. Hey, what was that plant that you pushed to the side earlier when you were looking at the beans? Well, that is actually similar to lettuce. It's spinach, which is something that if you're getting into gardening and if you use spinach, you have to grow it. Spinach grows like a weed, honestly. The only reason that I would recommend not growing spinach is that it can turn into a little bit of a weed almost. This is an okay example, is that after a while into the spinach's life cycle, if you're not harvesting it frequently enough, it will start to go to seed. The seeds will drop around the place. It will start to pop up everywhere and you will have spinach in a lot of places. But if you're using it, like we put spinach in everything and we have like a couple of plants. It is really worthwhile growing and really easy too. The next one is I think the only one on this list that I don't have growing in the garden currently, but I just had it growing, and that's peas. Now these were snow peas, which are one of the best crops that I recommend that you grow during the cooler months, but as soon as the heat gets here, they just die off. But not all pea varieties are like that. A lot of them you can still grow through a lot of spring, maybe not in the summer. But if you eat peas, they're such a fun crop to grow. These are self-climbers again, so you just put a structure near them and they will shoot out tendrils that will hold onto it and climb up themselves. I also think they're just really pretty. There's even ornamental varieties of peas that you can get that aren't for eating, that just people grow because they look so pretty. Okay, this isn't a great example. I'll try and find some footage of when it looks good. Ah, look, more dead peas. That's not what I'm here to talk about. The next one is the most picked clean veggie that we grow in the garden. I think of everything, it's the one that never gets overgrown, and that's kale. Kale is really easy to grow once it gets going. Kale seeds allegedly prefer to be direct sown, but I've found that they can be a little bit hard to get started when direct sowing, or sometimes insects and pests will just come and eat them when they're in the seedling stage. So you can still definitely just start them in a seed tray and then just transplant them somewhat early on. But then once they're established, they're so hardy. We cut this thing back to have we leave one leaf on it and then 2 weeks later you come back and you get a whole new flush of it. It's currently probably the #1 thing in the garden that I wish I had more planted of because of how much we're going through it. Now I could probably make this full list over again and have it be completely different vegetables. When you're new to gardening, there's so many fun and exciting things that you can grow, so definitely don't limit yourself to what's on this list. If you are an experienced gardener, please drop in the comments what you would probably add to this list. If you're new to gardening and actually want to know what not to plant, check out this video where I cover all of the plants that actually kill all of the other plants around them. It's a really fascinating topic. Thank you so much to the Patreons. Consider giving this video a thumbs up. Hit subscribe. It lets YouTube know to show you more Aussie gardening videos, not just mine. Thank you so much. I will see you next time.